going where the path takes us rather than having a fixed idea of how to do it. But yes, ultimately, people taking back the power, getting rid of these political parties, because they are, even if you've got good people in them, they are still answerable to their political party. So you are not their first master. And getting almost like councils of elders back, taking the best from being in a tribe and the best with our modern day technology and blending that together. But it takes the right people. It takes people that are out of ego and will work together. When they're all on the same path, they've all got the same mindset, things work very well. I think there is a huge amount of power in us all if we can come together and do it in a way where we're not trying to control one another, but working together. And that's taking quite a shift.
Hello to the Sovereign Empowerment viewers. I shouldn't be a surprise to Gavin's viewers, but it's Damien here, and I am absolutely blessed. I think having browbeaten her to come on, she shouldn't need an introduction, but we certainly on this platform, our viewers might be unaware of the quintessential English rose that is the wonderful Rachel. She is a throwback to a more innocent, passive time of the Archers. But make no mistake, she has the thorns of intelligence and the sword of truth at her side and woe betide those counsellors. Hello, Rachel.
Hello, Damien. Thank you for having me on. And wow, what an introduction I've now got to live up to.
We've got wonderful viewers and we're blessed to have you on. And I'll fill the first question, which is, I'm an avid fan of the Colchester Council Watch. I'm a big fan of yours and Karina and the team. I know you have got a fantastic team now behind you there. Can I ask for the viewers, what is the Colchester Council Watch and what does it you guys do?
Yes, we do have a fantastic team. There's several of us that have been going for just over a year now to Colchester Council to hold them to account on the things that they're doing, namely sort of environmental issues, their climate emergency, net zero. So we bring them to task over that. And some of those videos people might have seen went quite viral on Twitter. But then after a while, because we were watching all of their council meetings behind the scenes, because they live stream them on YouTube, because none of us really knew how councils ran, we did for our own education. And you're sitting through 3 or 4 hour meetings. And after several months of doing this, I suddenly thought, actually, everyone in Colchester needs to know this information, but who's going to sit through these long meetings? So I had what I thought was a bright idea at the time and now beginning to regret is doing a compilation video of sort of highlights, getting those 3 or 4 hour meetings down into 15 minutes. I hadn't realized quite how much work that was going to be at the time I came up with that bright idea. But anyway, it's proving quite popular with people because it keeps them informed as to what the council is doing, but also they get to learn about the councillors that they voted for, because I think a lot of people, I don't know about you, but I always used to, each time it came to voting, I'd pick the person that I thought would be the least bad. You're never inspired. You don't know who you're getting. It's just sort of needle in a haystack and I hope you won't be too awful. Whereas this actually, we focus on the people, not their politics. We don't care which colour team they're in. We focus on the individuals because we feel that is more important. That, in a nutshell, that's what we do. We report on our local council as well as physically go in and hold them to account when need be.
I think it's brilliant because what you've done is in the way that on this particular channel, we have to read all the boring legislation and condense it into bite-sized applicable chunks with which to get remedy. And what you guys have done is you've condensed 4 to 6 hours of these bloody boring, awful meetings, and hats off the fact that you attend these time in, time out. And you hold these people to account and you condense all this sort of mind-numbing experience into 16 minutes with the most important points and highlighting the good and bad in these meetings. Can I ask, are they all bad in your particular council of Colchester, or are you starting to break through their psyche, through their programming?
Not at all. We've got some fabulous councillors in Colchester. We're actually very blessed with who we have. We may not agree with what they say, but we can see that they're good people. Especially now I've started looking at other councils up and down the country. I appreciate our lot even more than I did before. We are beginning to reach some of them, admittedly not necessarily the ones that are in power, but there is change. Certainly the Blue team in particular have changed their stance on the climate emergency. They didn't, 17 voted against it in the last time that because they called the first climate emergency, they declared it in 2019.
We are facing a global climate crisis.
It was unanimous. All 51 councillors voted for it. But when they had one in December to up it, I don't quite remember now what they were planning to do. I think put more pressure on the government over the climate emergency. 17 voted against it, and they cited some of the reasons that we'd gone in there for, i.e. EVs are just not green, or a lot of the technologies that are purported to be green really aren't. When you look into how they're manufactured and how difficult they are to recycle, that the so-called green just isn't. And that message that's got through well and truly with some of the councillors. Others are just, doesn't matter what you say. They keep every week in a meeting, you hear them say, when are we going to get more electric recharging? When are we going to get electric dust carts and things? And it just goes straight over their head. So we're getting there. I'd say we've reached at least a third of the councillors so far.
You have proved that you can affect change locally with providing intelligent, factual information, material facts, as we do in law. It's wonderful. The whole point with this whole green thing, something I've never been able to get past, is the fact that every time they recharge these vehicles, you see them, they plugged it into the grid. Where do they think that energy is coming from?
That's the thing. They are actually trying to cover the whole countryside in solar panels and then wind farms out at sea and on land. So that's where they think it's going. But then when you start researching solar and wind, they're even worse with the way they're made. Solar panels, if they get a crack in them, they leach out lots of toxic material. So one really bad hailstorm and you're contaminating the countryside. They're very difficult to recycle. And a lot of them, it's very difficult to get a solar panel. Not impossible, but difficult to get one that hasn't had slave labor in the supply chain anywhere. And also, they never work as well as people say they do. I've been out in Spain with solar, and then I've come back to England with solar. And it's a joke having solar in England. It really is. There's no point in the winter. So they have this euphoric idea of what it's going to be like and what green energy is. And I'll hold my hand up. I used to be a believer. In my mid-20s, on my very first website, I had a whole page devoted to green energy because I was such a believer. But I hadn't actually researched it. I just thought, oh, that sounds a nice idea, because it does. It sounds beautiful, harnessing the energy from the sun and the wind. What could be better than that? And people buy into that dream and that idea. And I'm sure the original inventors of it, it was a good idea and they did have good intentions. But when you look into it properly, this stuff is actually very polluting and it just doesn't work. So that is what so many people have bought into. And as you say, going along to educate, it's very tempting with your council. You want to go in and tell them off. And I'm getting to that stage now after a whole year because I've given them all the information they need and they're still not listening. So now we need to take it to a different place. We've given them that opportunity. But to go in gently to begin with, gently but firmly, and educate, there's a lot of power in that because you are not pushing up too much against people's barriers, because everybody understands toxicity from mining and pollution. That's not a difficult concept to get. And once you start to present the facts of how bad these things are, people can accept that. We didn't walk in the door and immediately go, you do realise net zero is a complete load of rubbish and CO2 isn't. We didn't do that. It took us probably 10 months before we started to have that conversation that CO, and again, we went in with education. Look, CO2 simply isn't a strong enough forcing agent of warming that you think it is. And we gave them all the facts and figures. No one listened. It went straight over their heads. But if we keep going in, and they have agreed in principle now to a net zero debate where we bring in proper climate scientists and they debate with whoever the council wants to bring in, So we're getting there, but it's very slow and painful. And we need to stop the number of EVs. They have littered our streets with them, with all these bikes and scooters. And they're such a fire hazard that we need to get those off our streets quickly, which is something I'll have another conversation with you at another time, Damien, on what we can do with the paperwork, because they've got the information now and they're not listening.
Most definitely. That's an avenue. We'll have a look, obviously, with the litigation and using tort law and obviously holding our public servants' feet to the fire, which kind of leads me. Look, to our viewers, obviously, we're going to be leaving links to Rachel's excellent channels, and they're so informative. She's had some incredible guests on the likes of Sandy Adams and the top climate, not the experts that we've heard a lot about, but actual real scientists with facts, material facts, and not a philosophy, not ideas, not something they plucked out of their arse or the ether. And to be back with material facts, evidence, which obviously our law guys are used to using. We don't go to court with an opinion. We produce evidence and material facts. An opinion is only hearsay. And unfortunately, we've heard a lot of opinions in the last 4 years, especially with magical things that we couldn't see, that we had to be purposely terrified of. Much like the war on terror, come the 9/11, another magical thing you can't actually see, but you must be frightened of. But anyway, I digress. I'm going to come back in. Can I just, so for our viewers, Rachel has an absolute wealth of videos, very informative, obviously backing everything she said. And I was just going to ask, I don't want to put you on the spot, Rachel, if with the amount of information you've given these counsellors, could it be said or could it be thought, obviously we're not going to throw any accusations, I don't want to put you on the spot. Could any have any vested interests, i.e. to the detriment of the people, where they are pushing certain narratives that regardless of the evidence that's been placed in front of them, maybe they have a financial interest, maybe they're compromised. Could that be the case? That you don't have to answer that if you don't wish to?
I don't know about the individual councillors, but the council itself, they get grants to do certain things. And there's a stepping stone. It's like a trail of breadcrumbs that if they do thing A, they get some grant money. And then to get more, they have to do the next bit and the next bit. So it's on this treadmill of breadcrumbs that they have to follow. And to get the big jackpot, they've got to install the bicycle lanes. They've got to get the EVs and all that type of thing. I think it's certainly financially incentivized. And the people we don't see so much behind the scenes, the council officers, are very much steering the councillors to make decisions in a certain way. As for the councillors themselves, I've no idea. I was interviewing Matt and Johnny from Gloucester the other day, and they recommended that we did a deep dive on every single councillor on Companies House to see what companies they've been involved with in the past or now. They do have their declarations of interest, so I know what some of them do, but there's nobody immediately that jumps out as somebody that you think's got their hands in the cookie jars. I've heard rumours of some of them, but it's been more not this type of stuff. It's been other things. And I've got no basis as to which to know that is true or not, what I've been told. So I've just parked it as, okay, you might be dodgy in other areas. So we're going to have to start investigating that. And to be honest, we should have thought of that ourselves a lot sooner, but we've been so busy fighting the fires, almost literally, with these EVs and all the other things we've been doing, that there hasn't been the time to, no one's jumped out enough to think, we're really going to investigate you. And even if we do find it, unless it's, or we have a suspicion, you've got to find actual proof. So we haven't put our time into doing that. But I think that is something we definitely do need to. And as the team is growing now, I'm sure we'll get a willing volunteer to do that. But certainly there's enough incentives from the government without anyone being on the take personally.
Because it seems to me, obviously, you've got the corporate side with the statutory 151 officers being run as this corporate entity, and then they're influencing. You've got United Nations directives, these non-government organizations, free-flowing directives through central government down to local government. And it just seems to me that the power, certainly for us, people worry about central government. I think turn your back on them. I think affect change locally, which is exactly what you guys have done. And any darkness doesn't like light shone on it. And I think what you've done is fantastic because you are shining light on decision making that's not beneficial for the people in that local area, especially with the 5G infrastructure, and which is inherently harmful. I don't think anybody wants to be microwaved in their home. People really need to look into that, but that's obviously a topic for another day. But it's your platform has covered these topics in great detail with the green scan, the climate change deal, with 5G. It's all there. And you have a wealth of resources for people. Once they've watched your videos, they can get the information they need and run with it. You've
Yeah.
really people a platform to take the information and run with it. And you've covered everything, every misgiving, every misdealing within our councils. And you and I both agree, a lot of them are just damn ignorant. It's why you're doing that. Oh, Ernie showed us how to do it this way 20 years ago. They've got no earthly idea why they're doing it that way. And the fact is that they're actually breaking the law or breaking their own legislation. It's just a case of, well, it's like that when I got here. Unfortunately, too, we have to take responsibility because we took our eye off the ball. We were all blissfully asleep. And we've just allowed them to run our communities, our societies, and us into the bloody ground. Would you agree?
Yeah, it's slowly boiling frogs, isn't it? You put up with a bit more and a bit more and a bit more. We all should have been doing this 20, 30 years ago. So we've left it a little bit late, but better late than never. A few years ago, you couldn't have paid me to go in and do what I'm doing now. But now there's that realization that actually there's no choice. The sewer is overflowing and we've got to get our marigolds and waders on and just get in there and try and sort it out. Whether we'll succeed, who knows? But it's very important to do the trying because, as we were talking before we started filming, it's that spiritual growth or personal growth that you have to do to be able to stand up and find your voice. Whatever happens, no one can ever take that away from us. So I think the mere act of doing this, regardless of the result, is actually more important than the result. I'm sure a lot of people disagree with that, but I just feel that very strongly, that it doesn't matter what happens, it's matter what happens in us that is truly important.
I couldn't agree more. And I will add to that. I think as you inspire others, I can see this. I've watched it organically grow. I've followed from the very beginning, and the council watches are popping up all over the country, and that's testament to yourself, to Karina, and the other guys behind the scenes. Wonderful. And this is why I wanted to get you on, because to provide you another platform to inspire people, you need that exposure to promote your good work and inspire others to do the same. We need a council watch in every town in this land until we can get to a point where people are council watching, where people are litigating, and we can bring our public servants back to heel, get out the rogue ones and as they've installed their cultural Marxists and their NGOs, we can install our own people and actually affect change in our local community, because that's where we have the most power. And if you've got
Absolutely.
a wide network of everyone affecting positive change in their local community, my God, how powerful.
Yeah, if anyone wants to do this, we've got a Dropbox resources folder. The link is in the welcome. It's in lots of the videos, but we've got 20 speeches now. Admittedly, not all of them are to do with net zero, etc. We did have quite a lot of hassle when the council suddenly started putting on rather forceful security. So there's several speeches that hopefully no one else will need, but there's an awful lot that you can take them. Hours upon hours of research have gone into them. Anything we've done on climate, we have the lovely Ralph Ellis, climate scientist. He runs through every word we say before we get out there. So we write them and he checks they're accurate, because it's one thing putting it into layman's terms, but it's still got to be scientifically accurate. So he goes through and does that. We've got Ian Jarvis has helped us on 5G. So there's lots of resources. And I've also got a playlist on how, if you want to start a channel, your own Council Watch channel, how to do it. Or there's also a video on the psychology behind how you go in when you first talking to your council and how not to start shouting at them, basically. How to get information in a way that they can absorb. Doing it in a non-combative way is very important when you first start. Unless you've got a completely awful council, of course, and you're never going to reach them, then you might as well just stop going in and yelling at them. We try it the nice way first, see what happens, and then judge it from there. So we've got all those resources available on the Colchester Council Watch YouTube channel.
I really like the fact you've mentioned that, because by following their protocols, they've got no ammunition. It's doing it the right way. You're dealing with a well-oiled machine, and they will use anything and everything to stop you having your say. And if you're following protocol and laying out intelligent, factually based arguments, as you girls have done, it terrifies them. You can see they don't know what to do with you. And the fact that they brought in guards, pensioners, and middle-aged women in cardigans, it's an intimidation tactic. And I'll be honest with you, the minute you were stopped and touched, that is false imprisonment, assault and battery. I would have sued each and every one of those security right there. They'd have never come back.
Had we known it was going to get as bad as it did, we would have done. I could just see he was an idiot and wasn't trained. So I tried to deal with it through the channels, contacting the council, the leader. What I should have done is go to the CEO, but you just didn't imagine it would get as bad as it did and that they wouldn't do anything. But yes, in hindsight, we should have just gone in and slapped a lawsuit on. But yeah, we were a bit too, I don't know, we're just being kind at the time, thinking, oh God, you can see this guy's stupid. So he needs proper training. That's not down to him. He hasn't been trained. But when they didn't deal with it, and then it suddenly got us like, okay, we've had enough of this now. And then we started going and getting it on public record. Some of those videos went viral. They brought it upon themselves if they just dealt with it quietly and in the correct way immediately. So that immediately showed us they're either doing it on purpose or they're just hoping they're trying to intimidate us. Yeah, we've dealt with that.
I thought you dealt with it very well, actually. And it was definitely an intimidation tactic and definitely designed to thwart. And if you getting to the stage where you think, no, we're not going to put up with that, so we're not going to go in. I think it was to thwart your good work, to be honest.
Yeah, they're actually used to people coming in and being cross with them. It completely, and that is water off a duck's back. They hear complaints all the time. What actually disarms them is when you come in with factual stuff. And we've had a lot of help with the peacekeepers, thank goodness, because our speeches before they came along, they teetered off a bit with, and do the right thing, which wasn't very powerful. Whereas Lance came along, right, okay, here's why you've got to do the right thing, because you're personally liable. And he put a lot more firepower, and you see them going, ooh, I'm not used to people talking to me like that. And yes, there's a lot to be said for going in armed with the proper rules and regulations and knowing them better than they do, and also going in and being reasonable. In today's world, being reasonable and calm is actually a superpower. They are quite defenseless because when people are obnoxious, they've got something to grab hold of and to retaliate against. But when you are calm and reasonable, there's just nothing for them to deal with it, and it makes it very difficult. So there is a lot to be said for middle-aged women in cardigans going in and doing it in a very calm way.
It's brilliant. Thoroughly disarms them. Can I ask, how do you get from point A to point B? This is how I work in my lawsuits. So it's right. Okay. They started here, and let's catalogue all their actions, the bad actors from point A to point B. And point B is where you put your lawsuit in front of a judge. Now, what I was going to ask you is, have you had an awakening process? Are you always disinclined to stand up against perceived authority? And what did you think of what we went through 4 years ago? Was that part of an awakening process? May I ask? How do you perceive everything that's happened to you over the last 4 years?
Yeah, that was definitely a wake up call. I was already aware through my own health journey that modern medicine, it has its place, but it's not ideal for the human body, putting artificial substances in. Yes, if you're in a lot of pain, painkillers are fantastic, but everything else can do more harm than good. So I was already very aware of that. And I also, when I sold my house in 2011, before I went off traveling, I thought, I know nothing about finances. I really ought to learn about investment. And once I understood how money worked, I was in shock for months. It's, oh my God, this is just make believe. Monopoly money has more value because there's less of that than there is the actual cash I've got in my hand. So
The-
I was aware of that. But in 2020, I was actually out here in Spain. And the Spanish, you might say, did a proper lockdown. It was nothing like your namby-pamby one you had in the UK. In Spain, you were not allowed to leave your house unless you had a very legitimate reason, and that was to go to the doctor, the dentist, or to go food shopping. That was it. We had police every 15 minutes doing a patrol of the urbanisation.
Please, an emergency state has been activated due to the coronavirus. You must stay safely at your accommodation or home.
We had helicopters overhead. We had patrol boats. You were not allowed out of your house, not even to exercise, for nearly 3 months. Armed police were on the streets. The army was there. And I'd sent my passport back to the UK to be renewed, and a friend was going to be bringing it back. And you can probably guess how well that worked out for me. So I was well and truly stuck. And by the time I did get my hands on my passport again, there were no flights. So I was here for the full duration. And after about 3 weeks, it was like, this isn't right, because I'd studied health a lot. It's like everything they're telling us is the opposite to what you do to be healthy. None of this makes sense. So I started researching and then researching. And I started mouthing off a bit on Facebook. And a few people locally who I knew a little bit, but not that well, started reaching out to me. Rachel, you need to come off Facebook, get onto Telegram, get onto Signal. There's more going on here. So that was how I woke up to the bigger picture. And once you start to research mRNA vaccine, what's that? I've never heard of that. And you start researching it, it's like, ooh, that's a lot of dead ferrets. Yeah, I don't think so. And then you start to research more and more. And once you get into certain groups, people write things and you think that can't possibly be true. But then by that point, my little spidey sense was going, I know that's not true, but I'm just going to research it. And then by the end of the day, it would be like, oh no. And this went on for about 6 weeks. I must have been researching like 16 hours a day, because once I get into a subject and start going and looking at stuff, and the whole thing I was doing the entire time was to prove it wrong. All these so-called conspiracy theories, I wasn't having it. And it wasn't having any of it. It's like, I'm going to prove that wrong. And at the end of each day, I'd be like, oh my word. And I'd wake up with such a heavy heart the next day. But yet that insatiable curiosity to know more, because you're so unbalanced when you first start realizing the depths of what's happening. You just get, that can't be true. It's so destabilizing. And each day I'd come on, you can do it, get back to that computer. It's all right. What, you can't possibly learn anything worse than you did yesterday. I think every day I'd prove myself wrong. And this literally went on for about 6 weeks. And it was, not pleasant, let's say, but thoroughly enlightening.
I had exactly the same experience. My mum and I, my God, Covidius minimus split my family straight down the middle, to the fact that myself and my oldest sister haven't spoken since the beginning, because it just became so toxic. I was very outspoken, and she was the antithesis of you give somebody a little bit of authority, i.e. she was the one that if the neighbour had more than 5 people around, then she'd be ringing the police. And that couldn't have been further away from how I am. And the fact, my mum and I went one site where we went down those rabbit holes. We found ourselves upon a series by Janet Ozengard, Fall of the Cabal. And my God, blew my head off, because you come to the realization that everything you thought you knew
Yeah.
is a bloody lie.
Yeah.
I'm 50 this year. So I was in my mid-40s, and suddenly I thought I had a good account of life, a good world view. I was fairly well traveled. I'd retired, come away from 2 very grounding careers in construction, highways, then railway, very logical thinker, common sense, critical thinking. And so I had a good world view. But I realized, first and foremost, what I saw coming out of apparently China, that country where we never know anything from, and people falling down badly and putting their hands down. I realized that we had more to fear from government than we did something we couldn't see. So that started me on my law journey. But before then, my mum and I drilled down on Janet Ozengard, rest her soul. She was suicided by all accounts recently, but she put out 30 plus videos, and they just blew my mind. It just, I realized I'd been in an inverted reality, and this flipped it the right way up. It got very dark, because you end up going down some very dark rabbit holes. It's what they do this, what they drink that, what, they do this to children? What? You know,
Yeah, the children bit, when I got to that, nearly did me in. That really did finish me off.
but it's necessary to know not to go down too deep on that, but to know, see that you actually know the level of depravity and evil you're dealing with.
Yeah.
And I think then you have to get over the trauma. I found that having seen all that, processed it, you then got to deal with a loss, a sorrow, a trauma, make peace with that, and then pick yourself up and go, what am I going to do about it? How can I protect my family, the people around me? And then it was an acceptance of perhaps friends of mine, family of mine weren't ready to accept information, or you could put it in front of them and they can't see the words on the page. So then it's figuring that out and then just accepting the loss there. You can't reach them. They're on a different frequency and you're on a different path now. And you've got to stay true to yourself and your own path. But it was a very dark time, Rachel. And I did find it was having to deal with the trauma of that old world's gone, everything I thought I knew, that stability. I've got to start again. But
Yeah.
then
You go through the whole process of anger, fear, grief of the life you thought you were living and the world you thought you were in. So it's a whole gamut of emotions. And yeah, they interchange a lot. And yeah, I ended up house building in Italy. That I took off in a camper van and went and learned how to build a house out of earth with a great group of people for 6 weeks. And that restored my soul because it was broken by the time I'd finished researching everything. Just doing something physical, being off the computer, that restored me. And then you realize actually it's a small percentage of the world that is like this. It's most people are honest, decent, good, and true. When that lands again, it brings you comfort that, okay, this isn't as horrific. It is horrific, but it's not as horrific as I first blew it out of all proportion.
experience was a grounding experience because I had a similar thing, fun enough, and it's intuitive and instinctive. I got into gardening. I got into gardening, so I was out in my bare feet on the soil. I got chickens. I started growing my own food. But it's not so much that, don't get me wrong, those are positive things, but it's being back in nature, brought back the balance, getting my fingers connect to the healing frequency of Mother Earth. And I do believe that you've had a lot of experience in garden design in a previous sort of former life. Would that be correct?
I still do, actually. I still teach it online. But yes, so I've been in the horticultural industry my entire life. Yeah, but that was more, I didn't used to get out in the gardens that much. It was more sitting at a desk at a drawing board. But yeah, I do love being out in nature. And I got a dog after the lockdown who you've just seen. And that keeps me honest with exercise and getting out in nature. That's so important because it's so easy to get trapped in front of a computer. And as you see, I have a mobile alarm clock on 4 legs that tells me when it's time to get out in nature.
I'll just ask one last question. With regards to what you're doing, where do you see it going? I know where
Hmm.
I'm going. We've spoken about it, and I think sky's the limit. But where do you see it going?
I actually haven't ever had a vision for that. I've just gone along very intuitively wherever the path leads. But with what we were discussing earlier, I do see that we do need to do more with actually taking back control of councils and running things ourselves. So I see the end result, but I hadn't seen how we get there. I was just turning up with Karina and all the others to just do our part. We never had a set goal of we're going to do this and this, which I'm glad about because I think it would have been very frustrating. And also by not having a fixed view on where we were headed as such, other than we want to educate, that allows us to pivot and move with whatever comes along, and it's happening very organically. So trusting in the bigger plan, so to speak, and just playing our part. But I'm now beginning to get inklings, having spoken to you and other people, of how we can do that. I'm going where the path takes us rather than having a fixed idea of how to do it. But yes, ultimately, people taking back the power, getting rid of these political parties, because they are, even if you've got good people in them, they are still answerable to their political party. So you are not their first master. And getting almost like councils of elders back, taking the best from being in a tribe and the best with our modern day technology and blending that together. But it takes the right people. It takes people that are out of ego and will work together. Whenever you see groups that have got someone wanting to be the shining star and controlling everything, what I'm witnessing locally is the groups that I see, they don't have leaders. They have people that's maybe more outspoken than others, but no one's running the show. Everyone works together. It's very organic and interesting to watch how people organize themselves when they're all on the same path. They've all got the same mindset. Things work very well. And also, I'm coming to appreciate the balance of male and female energy working together. When you get women in their power and men in their power, which I think is why they're trying so hard to destroy masculine and feminine, when you get people certainly working with the peacekeepers, we've noticed this, they don't try and dominate us, they don't try and pander to us. There's a very nice energy between us all. And that I've come to really appreciate the strength of masculine and feminine when they're coming from a place of power and they're not trying to control or manipulate one another. And I think there is a huge amount of power in us all if we can come together and do it in a way where we're not trying to control one another, but working together. And that's taking quite a shift. So it'll be interesting to see how everything works out.
I absolutely resonate with everything you've said there. And it's just the basic fundamental idea of service to others. That's where we have to be, service to others. And if you're in service to others, there is no ego. And I love the fact, that lovely blend with you girls, you tenacious girls doing what you're doing, very well informed, and the peacekeepers providing the legislation to hold these people accountable and the interpretation of legislation. It's wonderful. Yeah, they're cool
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah, but also on an energetic level, whether they are with us or not, we feel that strength. And I'm a very independent woman. I've run landscaping crews on construction sites. I'm used to being in charge. But when they came along, I realized that Karina and I had been leading the charge and carrying so much weight of what we were doing that in order to do that, I was having to draw on my masculine energy so much it was unbalancing me. And as soon as we had that strong male presence, and I'm talking about proper strong male presence, not trying to dominate, not trying to take over and pat us on the back going, there, ladies, we're here now. None of that. Proper, true male strength. I was so shocked at my reaction to it. It was like, oh, thank goodness. And I would never have thought that would have happened to me because of how I am and how strong I am mentally. But and that's when I realized, that is why this is so important, that one, people are in their power, and two, the masculine and feminine work together.
It's wonderful. It's blended and complemented rather than dominating. And that's
It's balanced.
yes, but the time we're in, they've unbalanced us in every way, shape and form, and it's just bringing that balance back. And I love the way that you perfectly described that. And it is frequency matching. So without further ado, I'm going to wish you very well in your ventures, and obviously please stay in touch. I think we're going to be working on a few things on the talk side. So obviously I'm going to be more than happy to help there. And I really want to thank you for your time. And for me, it's a great honor and a pleasure to meet you and interview you. Thank you, Rachel. Thanks for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Ever grappled with the labyrinth that is the legal system? It's a maze of jargon, procedures and power plays that can stump even the most intelligent among us. Enter How to Win in Court, a transformative course designed to level the playing field. Brought to you by the dynamic partnership of Sovereign Empowerment and Dr. Frederick Graves. This course is like a compass, guiding you through the intricate passages of the legal system. It provides powerful case-winning strategies and tools for controlling solicitors and persuading judges. This isn't just about understanding the law, it's about empowering you to use the law to your advantage. This comprehensive course eliminates guesswork and empowers you to navigate the legal landscape with confidence. Imagine having step-by-step instructions at your fingertips, demystifying the complex world of court cases. With How to Win in Court, that's precisely what you'll get. There's a treasure trove of sample forms, video seminars, audio clips, and comprehensive classes waiting for you. Finally, you'll have all the tools you need to persuade and control judges in any case or court. The beauty of this course is its accessibility. Whether you're an early bird or a night owl, you can dive into the course material anytime with round-the-clock online access. And no matter the device, be it your smartphone, tablet, or laptop, you'll have seamless access to the course. You'll also gain access to invaluable tools like the free online legal research tool, legal dictionary, and a Q&A forum. Learn from a seasoned attorney with over 40 years of winning experience who has distilled his expertise into this comprehensive program. These resources are like having a personal legal advisor, always ready to assist you, but without having to pay exorbitant legal fees. For those struggling to afford a solicitor, this course is a beacon of hope. Good people have suffered too long at the hands of power because they didn't know how to fight back, or they didn't have access to the right resources. Now, in a matter of just a few days, you can acquire the tools and the knowledge that it takes law students years to achieve. With the right knowledge and tools, you'll be able to navigate the legal waters with confidence, winning your case without expensive legal representation. Alternatively, if you already have a solicitor, you can equip them with the tools and tactics to fight effectively on your behalf. Level the playing field and secure your victory. And the cherry on top? Upon course completion, you'll receive an honorary law degree, a testament to your newfound legal prowess. No matter what court, civil or criminal, you'll be able to conquer any courtroom challenge with ease. This step-by-step guidance ensures a quick and straightforward learning experience, empowering you to navigate the legal system with bulletproof confidence. That's right, the power to navigate the legal system is now within your reach. All it takes is the will to learn and the courage to empower yourself. Everyone deserves access to the right legal knowledge. That's why we offer the jurisdictionary law course at an unbeatable price. For less than the cost of a 1-hour legal consultation, you'll gain unlimited access to this complete program for up to 2 full years. Take control of your legal battles without breaking the bank. So why wait? Enroll in the jurisdictionary course today and take that first step towards legal empowerment. How to Win in Court has become the most trusted law course worldwide for almost 30 years. Don't miss out on this exclusive opportunity to gain the upper hand in the courtroom. Your journey to mastering the legal system starts here. When you have access to the right resources, you will become a force to be reckoned with in any courtroom. So click the link now to become empowered with all the information you'll ever need to know how to win in court. Learn how to use the court system that is there to protect you, your family, your property, and most of all, your rights.